always got to remember that German trains leave right on time.
That's true. So we're not very German. We're not very German today, yeah. So that's for sure. We're more Australian in that respectful, yeah. But I guess we can actually start because the room's pretty filling up, and we can start with our introductions. So I have just a couple of things to go through before I pass it on to our guests today. So first thing, the Q&A buttons at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time. We'll have a dedicated space at the end of the webinar to answer all the questions you might have. So feel free to use that. There's also chat on the right-hand side that you can use to chat to all of us if you want. That's an option as well. Today's webinar is a bit special. I actually have two guests today. I got Nadia Warner from German National Tourism Office in Australia. And I got a freelance writer, Tim Richards, with me. So today's webinar is going to be very interesting, a little bit different than what we had before. As always, there's a prize. So we're giving away a URL Global Pass for you to use anytime until 2022. And it's valid also for all the trains in Germany. So make sure you stay until the end of the webinar. We're going to have a short quiz as usual. And before I pass it on to my lovely guests, I'm just going to launch a quick survey just to gauge the room to see how many of you have been to Germany. And there's also a bonus question on how many of you have been to Hamburg, because we're going to be talking about Hamburg today. So just looking at the results come in. So the surveys popped up on your screen. So just to answer as soon as you can. Got most of the votes come in. All right, perfect. I'm going to close the vote now and just display the results. It's going to be interesting. So looks like the majority of you, 87% have been to Germany, so that's good. But only 30% have been to Hamburg, which is good because you'll learn something new and perhaps discover a new destination that you might want to visit or send your clients to visit. So that's great. If anyone didn't get the survey, I apologize. I didn't want to put it up too long because we want to keep things moving and just give more time to our lovely guests to present the destinations that we're going to be talking about. Anyway, so that's it from my end. Now I'm going to pass it on to Nadia first. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, welcome everyone, as we say in German. My name is Nadia. I'm based out of Sydney, Chippendale. Been the director of the German National Tourist Office for almost 2 years now. And I've put a nice picture from our trade famille from last year on the first slide. As you can see, a castle there. It's a 400-year-old beautiful old castle in what we call Fränkische Schweiz, which is Franconia, Switzerland. And we did get there by train, of course. Yeah, you have my contact details there, so please reach out with any questions after the webinar. And also we run a big campaign, Discover Germany from Home. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a beautiful new website with lots of video content and virtual tours in Germany and also recipes and other entertaining stuff. So check it out. Yeah, getting into it, what you can see from the map on the next slide, that we have so many options to travel by train in Germany. I mean, the red ones are just the main long distance connection routes. There would be so many amazing spots and the time is quite short. So that's why we have decided to introduce you to just a couple destinations a bit off the beaten track. We're going to start up in the north of Germany in Hamburg, and some of you might know that Hamburg is only an hour and 45 minutes by train from Berlin, from the capital. And I'm very super happy today that freelance writer Tim Richard joins us to take us on that very special journey. Tim is a big fan of train travel, and I'm really excited about his presentation. So thanks, Tim, for joining us, and I hand over to you now. Thank you. Joy.
Thanks, Nadia. Okay, so what I wanted to do today, I've been all over Germany by train, all corners of that map you just saw on different trips. So I've been to Leipzig and Cologne, Munich and so on. But I want to just take you on a journey I did in the north of Germany a few years ago by train with some of the attractions along the way. So we start in Hamburg. Now, Hamburg is obviously a port city. I love port cities because they always have this cosmopolitan, international sort of feel on top of the local culture. So you'll always find, you know, some interesting attractions that maybe are a bit different from the rest of the country. And Hamburg is a great example of that. And where I was staying was an area called the Speicherstadt. Now, the Speicherstadt is special because when Germany was formed or formed together from different states in the 19th century, this area was retained as a free port. So Hamburg negotiated this free port area. And so it had to sort of be cordoned off. So it's all canals and big brick warehouses, beautiful big brick buildings, very solid looking, as you can see. And it only ceased to be a free port from about 2013. So the city has sort of inherited this interesting history, which it can now use for tourist purposes. So quite a lot of development has happened in those few years. And I was there just a few years ago when it was all kicking off. So one thing I wanted to find stories about a city that are not kind of the obvious things, so I can sell them to, you know, editors and publications. And with this one, I looked around, I thought, what is Hamburg known for historically? And because of trade, one of the things it's always traded in is coffee. Now, you think of places like Italy as being very connected with coffee, but Hamburg actually has a very long tradition of coffee trading. And I thought, coffee, that will work, especially for an Australian audience. They love coffee. So I often sell to Australian publications. So I went to this the Speicherstadt Museum. This is the museum that basically handles the history of the area, shows you the history of the area. And so it covers all aspects of trade. It's in one of those wonderful warehouse buildings, but it also covers coffee specifically. So you can see from the exhibits there some of the equipment and the way it was handled and where it came from and some of the traditions behind that. So that's quite fun. And just nearby, not very far away from is Speicherstadt Cafe Restaurant. My German pronunciation is good. I learned it at school, which is a long time ago. But the just a new business, but it's in a wonderful historic building. You can see the view goes out onto the canal. There, you can sit there and watch the space. So it's really great using that kind of historic building.
Sorry, Tim, to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Really sorry. It just seems like we have a bit of a static coming from your microphone, so it's a little bit hard to hear. So it comes and goes. So I think it was fine at the beginning. So I'm not sure what the issue is. Maybe your internet connection. But just giving you a heads up. But I think it looks like it's better now. Yeah, let's try it again. Apologies to everyone.
Tell me, I can always go out and come back in. Yeah. How's that sounding now?
Seems better. Yeah, let's give it another go.
Keep going? Okay. All right, so this cafe roastery is in one of the old historic buildings. So great place to sort of have a break between sites. This is another museum. This one I really like. It's a private museum or privately founded museum that the guy owns this, worked in the coffee industry for decades. And he managed to amass a huge collection of coffee memorabilia and equipment and all sorts of interesting things. So it's called the Berg Coffee Museum. It's in the same district, it's walking distance from those other places. And you can see the great tins. This is a wonderful, it was basically a traveling salesman's kit. So the traveling salesman could try out coffee on prospective customers on their premises or in their houses or whatever, whoever he was selling to. So wonderful things. And they actually have a working cafe there as well. So they do coffee tastings like wine tastings, as you can see from the picture. So that one's rather a good one to keep in mind as well. The place I was staying in the same area, the Amaron Hotel, this was formerly a coffee exchange. So after the war, this building was built from scratch. It was intended to be like a stock exchange for coffee. So people would use to conduct those business deals and trade in coffee. And it's a lovely space. It's actually now part of the conference facilities of the hotel. So you can, if they're not having a conference, you can swing by and have a look at this wonderful display, basically, of the coffee harvest being picked behind. So the coffee theme is strong in Sparkestad. And that was the story that came out. So we made a nice piece. Everyone loves coffee and everyone loves traveling for food and drinks. So that was a nice story. Something else, talking about thematic things, I love railways. And in the same area, right next door to some of these places, is this place. It has nothing to do with coffee. It's called Miniatur Wunderland. It's a wonderful, huge collection of model railways. So, and they're all based on the landscapes of Europe. So, you know, there are Swiss ones and Austrian and German, but also some also from America and other places. And you can see the incredible amount of detail, and all the trains move. Some of the vehicles move as well. You can see Neuschwanstein Castle there from Bavaria above the railways and other towns. So great place to spend with families. But I could spend all the day there as well. It was fun. There was a lot of content, and also even the cafe there has all train seating. So it's really well thought through, and they're constantly expanding it because they've got an enormous amount of space that they can build through as well, which is great. This kind of exhibit, you know, the balloons move and the sun rises and the sun sets and the trains move. So it's really a remarkable, almost fastidious kind of construction. It's quite impressive. Now, talking about traveling for a theme, something else that Hamburg is connected with is the Beatles. They first arrived there in 1960. They were, when they were unknown, and they were hired to play live music in the clubs there. Now, this is Beatles Platz, so it's been named after them, the square, with these sculptures. You can see they've gone for a slightly abstract look because actually the drummer then was not Ringo, it was Pete Best. So you can sort of interpret the drummer whatever way you like. And we're next to the Reeperbahn there, which is the famous street in the nightlife area of St. Pauli. So I was there for a reason. I was there for a tour by this lady, Stephanie Hempel. Stephanie does a fantastic Beatles tour with her ukulele. She takes you around the streets of St. Pauli, the nightlife area. I'm actually there during the day, obviously a bit earlier than her normal tour. And she plays Beatles songs on the ukulele, and you can sing along. I think at this point, this was a place they originally performed at, where they did a version of My Bonnie, an old sea shanty that they did a cover of. So she was singing that here. She takes you through. There's a door that John Lennon used in one of his albums. When the Beatles were there in 1960, they were given rooms, and dingy rooms behind this kids' cinema. And the building is still there, and there's a notice about that there as well. And you also go past some of the clubs they formed at, which is still there. There's the Indra Club on the left and the Kaiser Keller on the right. So that's a great tour. I really enjoyed that. And it's just nice having the music as well. And the ukulele makes it even more absurd. So it's quite fun. And nice. That made a good story. That was in Traveller and the Fairfax newspapers. Now, we've talked about Hamburg. This is when I got on a train to Lübeck. Lübeck's only about 45 minutes. Hamburg and Lübeck are two great medieval trading cities. They're both in the Hanseatic League. Hamburg is still this big city. Lübeck is a bit more dated. And it's rather pretty to look at, as you can see. But it also has a famous thing. So I went from coffee in Hamburg, and I passed through this wonderful train station. I often find that the railway stations in Germany are an attraction in themselves. They're often built in that great age of pride in railways, a great civic fixture. So you get these wonderful buildings. And the thing that Lübeck is famous for is not coffee, but marzipan. And this company, Niederegger, is the most famous in Lübeck and has made marzipan in Lübeck for centuries. So I went there, I met some people there. Above the shop, which is on the ground floor, there is a marzipan museum, just what we all need. All these historic figures are made of marzipan. These eggs are made of marzipan. All the pieces in the screen behind are pieces of marzipan. And after you've had a look at all these interesting things about the history of marzipan, you can go to the cafe and sit there and have a marzipan covered cake and a coffee with marzipan in it. So and then go and buy some marzipan figures. So yes, it is very focused on marzipan. If you like sweet things, you'll like this attraction. But I quite like the way that German cities often have one. There's often one product or one foodstuff or one type of beer that is their traditional thing that they're famous for. And I think that's a great way to travel, to look for those things that you can't get anywhere else easily. And that made a great story as well. So that was another one for Lonely Planet. So I did coffee for them in Hamburg and marzipan in Lübeck. The other thing I wanted to show you is something that sadly you can't do now, because I caught a train from Lübeck into Denmark to Copenhagen. And this was just a few years ago, 4 years ago. And I wanted to show you this partly because I've got some photos of the train interiors, which I don't always take. But I just bought a ticket to Lübeck, Copenhagen. I had no idea that the train was actually going to go onto a ferry. I'll show you that in a moment. But I wanted to show you just in this picture the first class seats. Now, if I could afford it, often there are specials if you book way ahead. I know you guys would book these for your clients anyway. But I will often go first class on the German trains. I mean, life's too short to go second class, and if I can afford it. And in first class, they'll have a layout where there's one seat on one side and then two seats on the other side of the aisle. So I find if I'm by myself, I'll go and investigate the seat maps, and I'll find a seat like this, where you've got two seats facing each other over a table. And these timber tables are great. You can see they fold down, so they fold out to become larger tables. You can sit there and do some work. I've got my iPad sitting there on the table. Comfortable seats. I like the German train interiors. They often have these timber touches, so they're not just glass and steel. There's a sense of a slightly organic feeling to them. So I think they're a very comfortable way to get around. So I was on this train, and somewhere along the way, past all these wind turbines in this very flat landscape, we were told that the train was going to go onto a ferry. And you can see down the bottom there on deck 3, there's a picture of a train. So there's an enormous car ferry. The train goes onto its own rails on the ferry. And then we all had to go upstairs to the top deck for the 45 minutes it took to cross to Denmark. So we're all up there enjoying the view. Very sadly, this discontinued just in December last, and the trains now go around the long way while they build a tunnel. So there'll be a tunnel under here. So I think that's very unromantic. I disagree with it completely, but there are a few train ferries around in the world. But when we went back down, you know, it's in a strange situation of sitting there on the train with all the lorries parked next to you. But then again, you can see a sense of the first class seat there and the fold down tables. So I really like the German trains. They're very comfortable. Last year I went down to Switzerland from Frankfurt on a German train of this type, and very comfortably sitting there doing a little work on first class on the table, looking at the scenery as I went. So they're a consistent type of train that you'll find in Germany. I really enjoy those. These are the ice trains, ICE. That's pretty much all I have to say about that journey. Yeah, at different times I've been to, as I say, to places like Leipzig and Dresden and Munich and Cologne, Berlin and so on by train. So it's definitely the way to get around Central Europe and particularly Germany. There's a little photo of me there on the platform in Leipzig, just trying to get a reflection from my annual Christmas card I sent out to my business contacts. If you're interested in following up any of my work, I've got some links there on the screen. iwriter.com.au is the way you would find me most easily. That's my website. But I hope you guys enjoy doing this yourself sometime and booking all your clients onto trains in Germany as well. I think that's it, and we're on to question time in a moment.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tim. Really, really awesome story. I do apologize again for a bit of crackling noise here and there. I hope everyone was able to follow along as much as they could. I experienced the same issues, but I could follow along most of the story. So hopefully it wasn't too distracting for everyone. So now we have it's quiz time again, of course, for the prize. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window to ask any questions you might have about Tim's journey, about trains in Germany in general, or about Germany. You got 3 people here. between the three of us, we should be able to answer all the questions. And I will launch our survey now, our quiz now. So it should pop up on your screen. So I'll leave this open for a little bit, so you got time to fill out everything. So take your time to answer. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. Just a few words. Tim did touch on a bit about the train journeys that he's done, and Nadia as well. So Germany's got an extensive network of both high-speed and regional trains. Most of them, of course, you can book through Rail Europe. Good thing about Germany is that most of the sort of trains within Germany do not require seat reservations, which is really good if you have a rail pass. So if you have clients with a Eurail pass or a German rail pass, they can essentially just hop on any train they like, especially if they have a first class pass. There's usually plenty of space, so you don't have to worry about that. Of course, if they have a regular point-to-point ticket, oftentimes that will include seat reservation. So they'll have that allocated as well. And that will come up on our website, whether there's a seat reservation or not. But very flexible travel in Germany. It's like one of those places, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, where you don't need seat reservations, which is definitely adds to the flexibility of it. I don't see any questions coming up. I do see that almost half of you have finished the quiz. So we still have obviously a little bit more time to continue. Nadia, did you want to add anything else that I might have missed?
What people also like when they're traveling, I think, especially with the ICE trains, is the board restaurant. I remember the first time I took my American husband into Germany, and he was just blown away that he could sit on a train and just walk into the restaurant and order a beer even before lunchtime. So that kind of blew his mind. And it's really kind of comfortable there. You have coffee menus and lunch menus and dinner menus there. And they also serve the food at your seat, but I always like that kind of beautiful ambience, because the restaurant has really large windows. So if you drive through some really pretty scenery and have your meal, that's quite special, I think.
And I was, that's a good point. I was on the train I mentioned. I took from Frankfurt down into Switzerland last year. It had one of those restaurants, and it was fantastic. I had lunch on board. And even when we crossed the Swiss border, they changed staff, but the restaurant stays open. So you can have lunch all the way through the whole trip, no matter how long it is. Yeah, it's great being able to eat on a train where you actually sit somewhere different from your seat. I think that's fantastic.
We do have a couple of questions that came through. So we got one, and that's true, just the difficulty of connecting from Prague to Munich. That is a bit of a, it does involve a couple of connections if you want to do this by train. So there are also railway buses organized by DB on that route. But if you are traveling from Prague to Munich by train, you can go through Nuremberg, and that's an option as well. Another question would be for Tim. What is your favorite route in Germany?
Oh, now that's an interesting question. I don't know if you mean from a scenic point of view or not, but I guess in Bavaria, that area is really attractive. I went from Munich to Salzburg in Austria one year, which is not a long journey, but it's pleasant. I think I did Cologne to Berlin once as well, which is a longish journey, but it's fast. So you get to see a fair spread of Germany that way. And once I went from Poland into Dresden. I don't think that route runs anymore. It was Krakow to Dresden, which is a Polish train, I think it was. But also interesting, eastern part of Germany, I really like a lot. I think it's a bit underexplored, so I like to look around there.
Perfect. There's a question from Susan. If the train ferry has been discontinued for the tunnel to be built, will it be reinstated once the project is completed?
I don't think so, sadly.
I don't think so either. Yeah, it is a very romantic option, but I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. There's still, if you really want to experience a train on a ferry, there's still the option between mainland Italy and Sicily, where the train goes on to the ferry as well. I think that's the only other option I'm aware of. So, but yeah, unfortunately not. But the journey will be a lot quicker at least. So that's one option. And apologies to Edwina, because I think I misread her question about connecting from Prague. You actually meant Rothenburg. So I think for Rothenburg, I think you would connect through Dresden, I believe, and then you'd be able to go by train. But of course, yeah, sometimes it might be, that route might be easier by bus. Another question, is there any recommended scenic trains or any that serve traditional German food and beer? There's a couple of scenic routes in the sort of Black Forest area, I believe. I don't know if maybe Nadia, you have a bit of a better insight. It's definitely not, no like big routes come to mind that I know of. Nadia, any from your end?
I mean, to be honest, all the ICEs and the IC trains have board restaurants, and they serve traditionally German food there. And I reckon there's quite a few scenic routes. It really depends where people want to go. I mean, going from Munich to Nuremberg up north, it's all quite pretty scenery to look at. It really depends where the traveler wants to go.
Perfect. And then there's a question if you also visited the Chocolate Museum in Hamburg and if it's worth visiting.
No, I didn't. That must be news to me. I wonder if that is something that started since I was there, but no, I didn't get to the Chocolate Museum. That sounds quite appealing though, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a comment from John. He's saying that Hamburg has more bridges than Venice, which is an interesting fact. And he's also saying that there's the problem with dining cars in Germany is that some people just sit there for hours having coffee and reading the paper. Yes, that can happen. Yeah, but yeah, just give them a bit of a look.
With dining cars all around the world. I was on a
exactly. Yeah,
I was on a New Zealand train last year where they chase you out of the dining car as soon as you beat.
Yeah, exactly. Just checking that everybody could see the survey come up. I've received some comments that they didn't see the survey. I see that 80% of you have answered it. We'll still keep it up for a little bit on. Neville has mentioned Harz Mountain Railway. I'm not familiar with it. Nadia, do you know of Harz
Sorry,
Mountain
I didn't
Railway?
get that.
Harz Mountain Railway.
Harz Mountain. Yeah, that's quite a famous scenic route as well. That's an old steam train that goes through there. And we actually sent an influencer there last year. He took some amazing photos. I myself haven't been on it yet, but it's very rugged terrain and quite scenic and beautiful. Definitely would recommend it.
Exactly.
And also, I was just recalling that when I was in Bavaria, I went from Füssen, which is near Neuschwanstein Castle, to Munich, and I'd forgotten that journey, but also by rail, that's a very pleasant scenic journey as well. And obviously the castle is fantastic as a place to start or end.
Well, it's great that you mentioned that, because one of the questions is, can you get to Neuschwanstein Castle by public transport? You go to Füssen, right, first?
Füssen is the closest, I think. That's where I actually came down another way, and then I caught the train from Füssen, but I believe that's the closest station. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it's you definitely can do that by public transport. There was just a question about the survey. You don't need to put your name on the quiz. It's automatically recorded, so you just hit submit. So no worries about that. Wendy mentioned that she did take the train from Munich to Füssen, and then there are buses going all the way to the castle. So definitely an easy problem, an easy problem to solve for sure, to get there by public transportation. Vanessa was asking about the map of German rail system, like the one we had in the beginning. So we will send that out in the post-webinar email. Yep. And we do have it available also on our website. So that's very easy to find and get. So you'll all get that after the webinar. Any other questions?
There's a beautiful map in that German rail pass brochure that Deutsche Bahn has.
Okay, yeah. So as well, if you get a German rail pass, you get a map with it as well, as an option. So there's a lot of different rail maps available, and I'll link that all in the email that we get. So I've got about 86% of you finishing the quiz. I'll give you another 30 seconds, so just make sure you put those answers in if you want to participate.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, so any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap things up shortly. And I would like to thank everyone for joining. It was a really wonderful journey through the northern part of Germany. A big thank you to Tim for giving us this wonderful tour, a little bit different than what we had in our other webinars. Thank you for Nadia for facilitating all that. Next Tuesday, we are taking a bit of a break, so no webinar on next Tuesday.